Hi, Scary Recaps here. Today, I'm going to explain the movie Barbarian from 2022. Beware of spoilers. Tess Marshall arrives at her rented house in the Brightmoor neighborhood in Detroit. Although she fails to enter the correct password to get inside the building, Tess notices a light from within and goes to knock on the door. Soon, a man named Keith answers, and, as it turns out, the house has been double booked by him and Tess. Tess is hesitant but decides to stay after Keith reassures her about his good intentions. Chatting casually over a bottle of wine, Keith and Tess discover that they have many things in common. Later, in the middle of the night, Tess is awoken by the sound of her bedroom door opening. She hears Keith talking in his sleep and goes to him. Keith is rudely awakened and startled. Nothing happens after that, and they both sleep until the morning. The next day, Tess wakes up and finds that Keith has left her a note saying that he will meet her again later in the day. Tess is surprised to see that the Brightmoor neighborhood consists mostly of deserted and dilapidated houses. These gloomy and depressing houses give Tess a sense of uneasiness. Tess meets up with a woman in the city about a job interview. Tess tells her about the place she's staying, and the woman is dumbfounded to hear about this. When Tess returns to the house, she is scared by a homeless man who runs up to her, shouting that she must leave the house. Tess calls the police, but they are not able to assist her. Tess decides to overlook this distressing matter and goes about doing some chores. She descends into the basement to grab some toilet paper, and the door closes, locking her inside. Searching around the basement, Tess finds a rope in the wall. She pulls it, and a secret door opens. At first, Tess is scared to enter. She sits on the staircase for a moment until she takes a big mirror to reflect some light into the dark passage. Seeing that there's nothing scary inside, Tess walks into the passage and finds a room with a camera, a bed, and a bucket next to it. Tess panics and bangs at the basement window, where Keith sees her and helps her out. Tess is uneasy at the prospect of staying here, but Keith convinces her to remain until he has a look at the passage as well. Keith goes down, and Tess calls out for him. Keith doesn't reply, and while Tess searches for him, she comes across a second passage. She hears Keith calling for help, and Tess follows his voice. Shocked to find bloody cages and cells along the way, Tess is literally holding her breath when Keith appears crawling to her. Tess tries to bring him back out, but Keith says that something bit him, and that thing is still down there with them. As the two wrestle between opposite directions, an enormous grotesque female figure appears and smashes Keith's head against the wall before screaming horridly at a petrified Tess. In the next sequence, AJ, a young and aspiring actor, is driving in his fancy car when he receives a call. AJ learns that he is accused of raping a co-star in the series he is working on, and therefore, he has been fired. AJ travels to Detroit to sell a house in order to make ends meet. Apparently the house he owns is the same house Tess and Keith were staying in. Having a look around, AJ sees Tess and Keith's things and wonder if anyone is staying there at the moment. Upset by this mess, AJ goes out for a drink. Returning home drunk, AJ calls Megan, the alleged rape victim, and leaves her a message, trying to make things right again. The next day, AJ wakes up with a hangover. While throwing up in the toilet, he notices some of Tess's things in the bathroom. He searches some of her stuff and finds her laptop. Not being able to do anything with it, AJ tosses the laptop away and goes to the basement, driven there by a weird noise. AJ soon discovers the secret passage and the rooms therein. Thinking of adding the underground space to the sale, AJ begins to measure the place. Eventually, he happens across the second dire passage and continues to measure despite the disturbing cages and the menacing darkness all around him. After a while there, AJ sees a violet light in the distance. He hears a voice and eventually discovers an odd room with an old TV inside, showing a woman nursing her baby. Suddenly, something grabs AJ's tape measure and pulls it. AJ freaks out and points the flashlight and the knife at the darkness. He doesn't know where to go or what to do. Scared as he is, AJ runs but falls and his flashlight begins to flicker. In those horrid instances, AJ gets a glimpse of the nightmare that is stalking him. AJ tries to escape and falls into a pit. He sees the grate closing above and Tess showing up, telling him to be quiet. The next sequence is 40 years earlier. A man named Frank is seen leaving the destined house and going to the shop to buy baby products. Exiting the shop, Frank follows a woman to her house. Frank dresses up as a plumber and enters the house of the woman. He goes to the bathroom and leaves the window open. When Frank returns home, one of the neighbors informs him that he is going to sell his house and leave. Frank simply mentions that he will not go anywhere and enters the house, where a muffled woman's scream is heard. Back to today, AJ doesn't know what's really happening. Tess tells him that he mustn't be upset, otherwise she will get upset. AJ wonders who she is, until he sees the horrible creature flushing a nursing bottle down into the pit. Tess tells AJ to drink the milk, and does so herself, but AJ is too frightened to even consider this. Tess urges him to drink, but AJ does not comply. The ogreish woman opens the gate and hugs Tess, calling her baby. It's obvious that the ogreish woman is viewing Tess and AJ as her babies. AJ is not up to the task, however, and he is soon dragged out of the pit, up to the room with the violet light. Tess then, seeing the grate open, grabs the opportunity to escape. While the ogreish woman forcefully tries to breastfeed AJ, Tess exits the pit. But, in her attempt to escape, Tess accidentally steps on AJ's tape measure and alerts the beast. Tess makes a run for it and gets up to the basement, but the door is closed shut. As a last resort, Tess breaks the window and crawls out with the aid of the homeless guy just in time before the ogreish woman grabs her. Tess shouts at the homeless man that there is another one down there, and the man says that it isn't safe. In the meantime, AJ leaves the violet room and wanders around. The homeless man warns Tess that the ogreish woman comes out at night, and it would be best if they were to leave right away. Yet, Tess is determined to save AJ, and heads to a gas station where she calls the police. Back below the ground, AJ discovers a room which the ogreish woman avoids for some reason he cannot tell. AJ walks into the room and finds a sick, old man lying in bed. Meanwhile, 2 police officers find Tess at the gas station and listen to her saying that she is being held prisoner by a monster and that a man is in danger in the house. The officers think that she is a junkie, but follow her to the house. AJ gives the old man a bottle of water at his behest to drink. The old man points again at the bedside table, and AJ fetches it for him. Tess can't persuade the officers that something bad is happening at the house, and she is soon left alone again. AJ is watching some disturbing footage of the old man, who turns out to be Frank. AJ shouts at him for his monstrosities, and Frank retrieves a gun with which he shoots himself dead. Above the ground, Tess waits for nightfall, and, when the ogreish woman storms out of the house, Tess runs her down with her car. Seemingly dead, Tess enters the house searching for AJ. She sees a strange light in front of her, and a gunshot is heard. AJ has accidentally shot Tess, thinking her to be the beast. Thankfully, he has only wounded her, and helps her out, where they both end up at the homeless man's hideout. There, AJ and Tess learn that Frank was abducting women, with whom he was having babies, and then babies with his offspring, until the ogreish woman was born and everything turned to hell in the Brightmoor neighbourhood. Worried about the monster, AJ asks the homeless man if they are safe there, at which the man replies, yes. Suddenly, the ogreish woman emerges through a wall and grabs the homeless man, ripping one of his arms off and bludgeons him to death with it. AJ and Tess flee and climb to the top of the water tower. In a frantic effort to stop her, AJ goes to shoot her, but unintentionally drops the gun. Tess reaches the top, and AJ realizes that whatever they do, they won't be safe. AJ decides to save his own skin at the expense of Tess. He tosses her off the top to lure the beast to go after her. Tess falls down, and the beast blindly follows. AJ climbs down from the tower and picks up the gun. He sees that Tess has survived the fall, landing on the ogreish woman. AJ makes a poor attempt to apologize to her, but all of a sudden, the beast opens her eyes and grabs AJ by the throat. The ogreish woman quickly demonstrates her ferocity when she gouges out AJ's eyes and rips his skull apart. The beast then approaches Tess, who is lying wounded on the ground. Acting like a kind and caring mother, the ogreish woman caresses Tess and tries to lift her so that she can tend to her wounds. But Tess doesn't want to go back to the hellish pit, so she puts the gun to the beast's left cheek and shoots it dead. In the last recurring scenes, Tess is seen limping away.